Yeah, it's Tom. So, you see me. I review a lot of knives, and I've been around knives all my life. I'm touching 16, so. Um, and now I've been through the gambit of knives. I've been through the stick tangs, the hollow handles, the full tangs, the expensive, the cheap, the commando daggers. I've used them, double edges, stuff like that. So I've been down the gambit of knives. Let me say this. Back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even into the mid 50s, even later than that, most of your knives weren't full tang knives. Most of them were rat tail knives. Um, just for instance, like the quartermaster knife, the PAL 36, the K bars, the cases, K bar cases, K bar marine fighting knife, the case, the K bar, and the Camillus. They were all stick tang knives. Commando daggers were, and Applegate Fairbanes were not a stick tang, but they were a small tang knife. Now, my uncle told me that after World War II, he brought his Navy Mark One knife home with him. That was his hunting knife since he was in World War II. When he died, his son got it. Um, After World War II, he told me my dad told me these knives were in a barrel. You could go into any hardware store in America and buy surplus weapons, surplus knives, surplus everything, dog dirt cheap, and they just threw them in a barrel. Now, my dad and my uncle and everybody lived was a mining town. So you had your one mining store in the middle of town. And they had three or four different types of knives, like K-bars and that. They were still in the Cosmoline in the boxes. And the rest of them, you found them in barrels. Dad said you found them anywhere from, beat to crap to outside, like brand new. And my uncle said that, they ran anywhere from 50 cents to $3, depending on the shape they were in and what kind of knife and everything. But he said there was, the PAL 36s, the K bars, the Navy Mark 1s, Navy Mark 2s, the this, the that's, the other thing. There was a bunch of knives that was used. And so that's the way that all went. So, that was your extent of your military knives. Now, a lot of guys came back from the military, and believe it or not, Collins Legitimus V44 knives that were made by Case and a couple other companies, they were in that barrel too for like $5-6. So, but a lot of guys brought them knives back and used their Bowie knives till, whatever happened. Morris Kohansky, he spoke of it one time how they used to get fillet knives and the British Commando daggers and K bars and stuff up there for like $2-3 a piece, and you'd buy them. There was all over the farm, and they'd throw them and everything. So I have my dad's knife here that he bought then. He had it in the Air Force. It's a PAL 36, or it's a Remington Model 4. They didn't even say PAL on it yet. And that knife's still going like the day it went on, and it's been what, 70 some years, and he used it for probably 50 of them years. And using it what a knife is supposed to be made used for. Which leads me to the whole controversy. Now, yes, full tang knife is structurally the best you can get, unless you know your knives. There's two companies out there who use what they call a split tang, and it looks just like a full tang knife, but it's not. It's just two pieces of metal that sits over top of the handle. So you really can't tell. Like the Western Shark knife that everybody touts that was in World War II, that was a split tang knife, and there was some rat tail tangs. So you really don't know. Okay, but what I'm getting at is these guys back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they used a knife for what a knife was for. And they had not a problem ever using rat tail tangs. You never heard of, Bobby broke his knife 20,000 miles from town trying to pry out a grub out of a tree. You never heard this because they used them for what they were for. Where us, you know, we think we have a 6-inch bladed knife with a full tang. Well, hey, let's get a piece of wood and chop down that tree. We'll just beat this knife right through it. It's full tang, it won't hurt it. So I'll say that they are structurally the most sound you can get. Stick tang, I've used stick tang knives all my life. For a hunting knife, camping knife, woods running knife, I have no problem using one. Not only just the K-bar, but all my hunting knives and everything. They've all been like colonial and really cheap ones because we really didn't have the money to buy good ones then. So you used them for what they were for, and they didn't break on you. So I've used the stick tangs, I've used the full tang knives, and then in the 80s, the hollow handle craze came around, and you had to weed through them. I mean, the first ones that came out were made by Rothko Company, and they were plastic handled, pleather, vinyl, sheathed. Put an edge on it today, blink and it's gone. Tomorrow, they were junk. But it started a craze. Then Life Knife Commando came out with a really good barrel knife, hollow handle. And then the good knives started coming out from Wilderness Explorer, Life Knife Commando, a couple other ones I can't think of what they are right now. Valor had a couple of good ones. Parker I May, Parrish, Bianchi, Smith & Wesson, Robert Schleppler had a really nice knife. So, there are a lot of people made them because they were popular. It's kind of like that stupid harpoon blade they have now. People like them, they're going to make them because they're popular. And then I went to something else, and then I went to you had to have a full tang. Nowadays, it has to be carbon and it has to be full tanger. It's not considered a bushcrafting knife. Listen, I can show you guys I know right now that's in their 80s and 90s and spent most of their life in the woods, and they have stick tang knives that's in their drawers, or pocket knife. Matter of fact, I have my uncle's hunting knife here. My uncle was 93 when he died. And my aunt said to me, "Would you like his knife?" I said, "Oh, yeah, sure." She hands me a Pakistan folder. It looks like, a buck, one of the flat, cheap Pakistani ones. That was his deer knife. He'd sharpen it before deer season, and he'd skin his deer and use it, and it would go dull. Oh, well, I'll sharpen it next year. And he wasn't poor. My uncle had he had money to do what he needed to do with. So what it boils down to really is it doesn't matter if it's a stick tang, full tang, hollow handle, half tang, full tang, whatever. It's if you know how to use a knife and what they're used for. Everybody touts them knives from back in the Mountain Man days and whatnot. They were not full tang knives. Some of them were only quarter tang. You look them up, look historical records. Some of them had a tang that went in about a quarter of a way down the handle, and they got pinned there. The rest of the pins were decorative. Some of them had a half tang, but most of them were quarter tang. They used them. They fought battles with them. They used them in the woods forever. So the whole gist of this is it's not what kind of knife you have, whether it be a hollow handle or stick tang or full tang or half tang or 3/4 tang or a split tang or a did tang and did yanny. It all depends if you know how to use a knife and what to use it for. They're not axes. They're not pry bars. They're not froze. Froze is something you put on a stump and beat the hell out of it to make shingles. They're not a splitting maul. They're not a splitting wedge. They are a knife. They're made to process game. They're made to cut stuff, rope, and stuff like that. Processed fish, processed game, carve stuff for you, spoons and whatnot that you're going to use to eat with. And I'll tell you one example. When I was in the Boy Scouts, we had this one kid that, excuse me, okay, had to get a drink. We had this one kid that used to show up all the time, with all the Boy Scout stuff his parents had. They were well to do, so. And he had a Camillus Boy Scout knife. And he had an Ulster too. That's a knife company, not a stomach problem. But anyway, and we were in camp, and the scoutmaster said to us, "Okay, you need to make some feather sticks, this, that," and they were instructing us how to use our Boy Scout knives. So this kid picks the knife up and he's whacking it, and the instructor said to him, "What's wrong with what are you doing at?" So, my knife won't go through the wood because it was so dull you wouldn't cut butter. So he was just beating on it with another stick. My scoutmaster went absolutely ballistic on him. Said to him, "I don't know what you're trying to celebrate, but that is no way to treat any of your equipment." He went ballistic. Between that and the fact that I broke a couple of really nice knives trying to do this batoning thing, or batoning, whatever you want to say, I don't baton. I don't find any need for it. But he wasn't using his knife for what it was meant for. It was a camp knife. It was made to cut stuff up, to open cans, to sew with the awl, to do things. The same thing going to happen with your knife. Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't beat an LT right through the side of a building, or an Emerson or something like that. You can. I've seen a lot of guys here on YouTube. Matter of fact, what's his name? Bjorn Benson, I think he is. The guy was using, well, he actually is a younger guy, but he was using a knife. I still can't figure out what it is, but it looks like a Frost Fantasy knife. It's definitely a stick tang. It's not a full tang. Stainless steel, thin blade. And he's still using it 2-3 years into the YouTube channel. I know guys out there using old hickory knives, and they're only an 1/8 thick. They're not, the big honking, gotta be a 1/4 thick knife. So it really boils down to if you know what you're doing with your knife and how to use it. My dad, my uncle, and the whole crew of them has actually camped and hunted and fished all their lives. Mostly on pocket knives. My uncle had that Mark I Navy knife, and Dad had the PAL 36. That went with them. That was their big game knives. But for the most part, it was all pocket knives. You never seen them wearing a fishing, or when we camp here and there. Or, you never seen the big knife come out then. It was all pocket. So this is my thoughts on it. Learn how to use your knives. Know how to use your knives, and don't abuse them. And then you keep them longer. So, this is Tom. I want to thank you for your time and your patience. All hell the algorithm thing, like Ray says, or the Nutty Knife guy. And we will see you guys on the next one.